Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Mind, Your Reality, Your Results, a weekly show where I speak with experts on the matter of mindset so you can change your mindset and ultimately get the amazing results that you want. I'm so excited today to be joined by Lesley Evans. Welcome to the show, Lesley.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Well, you guys are going to love this today. If we haven't met before, by the way, my name is Leah Fink. I'm the owner and founder of allthrive, and I help protect people from the pain of damaged relationships. And I'm always happy to chat about that if you ever want to reach out. But that is not quite what today is about. Today, we're going to be talking about some great tips and tricks for keeping you mentally healthy, which is a passion of mine. And this week in Canada, of course, is National Mental Health Awareness Week. So I think it's a super important topic to be talking about right now. I hope you guys want to capitalize on Lesley's experience and knowledge, because as you'll hear, she has a lot. So please do feel free to put questions and comments in that comment box. If we can get to them during the show, we can. And even if you're watching this not live, please put them in there. We'll make sure to get back to you later. So as I like to start with everyone, Lesley, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey here?
Absolutely. So what I like to start with is my journey really starts with a checklist that of everything I thought I wanted. You know, I graduated from psychiatric nursing 30 years ago, if you can believe it, 30 years, and married my college sweetheart, bought a house, had kids, and I worked in public health, and served and served and served. And I was primary support to my mother as well. And as I went through those years of making sure everyone around me was doing well, making sure, my marriage was good, my kids were doing okay, my mom, my job, all day at my job, I lost myself in that. And I really lost, who I wanted to be and what was important to me. I actually really didn't know anymore what I even liked. And, if I ever took time out for myself, I always had a load of guilt. And, I don't know if you're this person that takes your phone, if you're going out for dinner or whatever, a date, getting that time out. But as soon as the text comes through, you're right on it because you feel guilty about doing something for yourself. I was that person. And really when life changed for me was having a conversation with my eldest daughter, who was 16 at that time. And she was talking about a boy she was having trouble with. And that she was giving up a lot of the things that were important for her to make that boy happy. And as I began to give her the good advice about, you need to be strong, you need to, know that your beliefs are great, don't give those up for anyone. I started to really realize what I was modeling. And I have 3 girls. So I was modeling to them that really life was about self-sacrifice. And that's not what I wanted for them. I wanted them to live full and wonderful lives that they loved and enjoyed, not a life of full self-sacrifice. And so that was a real light bulb moment for me. And I really sat down and really thought about where life was going. And at that point, my husband at that time and I decided we weren't doing any favors for ourselves or our children, and separated from that 21 years of marriage, and started life with my girls. And really what happened in that process is I learned that there was a piece missing. So I had all of this therapy background. I could name cognitive behavioral therapy and, any therapies like the back of my hand, but it wasn't what was fully take me to where I needed to go. Or really, I think lots of people are missing that spiritual piece or that connection with energy or their higher self, in whatever way you like to describe it. And so I set up about really just doing training in those things. And so became a Reiki master, learned about the Akashic records and a soul care coach, and really have learned to blend the best of both of those worlds, the therapy background, the modern therapies, and as well the alternative or magical therapies to just help people move forward, just like I needed to do in those moments.
Wow. I mean, I think that's such a powerful thing to be able to blend, because sometimes people might be seeing them as do only this or do only that, that they're in opposition. And it would not surprise me at all that a lot of people, and I've got to say probably especially women, have gone through a similar story to yours, or maybe are still in a similar story of feeling like they have to give all of themselves over to a partner or to their kids or to their job. So yeah, I just love that story and how you move forward from it. That's great.
It's and there's two things that you talked about there. There are so many, and there are men out there too that have been like that. I think that it's prevalent in women just because of where we've come from in over the times, but yeah. There are so many out there with the mom guilt or the guilt of not being everything for everyone, and we just can't be. We can't. And so, but the other thing you said is there's this opinion that if you're seeking medical, that you can't do the alternative, and vice versa. And almost sometimes the people in those professions that are saying, if you're doing this here, you can't do that there. And what I'm here to tell you is it blends beautifully together, and that it can get you further than either of them separately, I think.
But I think that raises the point too. If anyone read the title for today's talk and went, are these people anti-therapy? That is certainly not. I mean, we're both coming from a mental health background. We're certainly encouraging people, if they're at that point, they want that support, go get that support. More that it can be a really holistic view of, maybe some of these more spiritual sides, a direct therapy. And also what we're going to talk about today too is, what would you kind of called them secrets, but other ways that you can really take care of yourself, maybe before you feel like you have to dive in and do the hard work right away when you're at that point of maybe things aren't going quite right. There's a lot of skills you can develop and things you can learn. So do you want to start us off on that path?
Absolutely. And you're right, Leah, that this is not an anti-therapy. I am a therapist by training, and I have many therapist friends who they're there if you need them. Use that, and don't ever be ashamed to go to therapy if you need it. What I am suggesting is that there are small steps that everybody can take to start moving out of that funk. And so I'm going to share some of those steps today. And really, if you're finding that it's even hard to start taking those first steps, that might be the point where you just see somebody and say, I'm having trouble. So some of the things that I've really found have been common with some of the things I went through or that I've worked with. And one of those things is, you know what? You can have guilt-free self-care. I know it seems like that might be out of the realm of possibility to start being able to take care of yourself without that guilt. I can tell you that you can move from there, and there are ways to do that. There's lots of little secrets to be able to start letting go of that guilt a little bit at a time. But the bottom line for me is that if you don't take care of yourself, eventually your body or the universe is going to stop you in your tracks and say, okay, enough is enough. You have to now. And often that comes in a form of a physical or medical illness or symptoms that are coming up, that they're just saying enough is enough. You have to start taking care of yourself. And so it's really important to start doing that before you get to that point, or as you're starting to feel things slip a little bit. So really taking care of yourself without guilt. You can do it. I promise.
I am so with you. I have my own experience with that piece as well. And if I can add one more piece that really helped me, because I do workshops on self-care, is also reframing self-care as almost like an ethical issue. Because, as a therapist, if you are, or a mom, if you're stressed out beyond belief, you can't take that time. You're feeling so guilty that you're not taking the time. Suddenly you're screaming at your kids. And that's not an ethical way of supporting them. And if you're working with clients in any way, whether that's like a coaching helping profession or whatever that looks like, if you're getting upset at them or not able to respond to what they need, that's not going to help you. That actually like decreases. Then you're going to need more self-care and get more and more in this spiral of not good.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it. We think that we're actually taking care, we're sacrificing ourselves for everyone else. What's happening though is how we're supporting everyone else is actually being sacrificed by not taking care of ourselves. So the shift really is that I am taking care of myself so that I can be at my best for my family, for the people I care about, my community. That's the shift for me.
So for those people that are sitting here, probably have heard that before. To be honest, people talk about self-care a lot. You can't be there for others without being there for yourself. Would you have maybe one quick tool or trick you could share with people that might help actually shift that mindset instead of just knowing about it? Because it's much easier to hear, of course, than to implement.
Well, I'm going to talk a lot about mindfulness in this time. And I'm going to talk about, because I think that especially those that are overwhelmed feel like, well, I can't fit self-care in. I can't do one more thing. My list and my day are already over here. And so I'm just going to talk about the little points in the day where you can take care of yourself as a start, not as a finish, because I'm all about, this is my second secret, I'm all about taking small steps to get you where you want to be and making those small changes that don't seem so hard at the beginning. So I'm going to talk about self-care and taking those moments throughout your day that you're already doing something. So if you think about walking, okay, and I'm going to ask a little bit of a trick question. How many walk every day? Yes, everyone. Well, I mean, most people walk from their kitchen to their bathroom, or from their car to an appointment, or we walk. We have moments where we can travel, whether you walk or whether it's in a different way. We have moments that we're traveling from one moment to the next. And instead of that moment being all about your thoughts going around and around about what's got to happen next, you can take those few moments, whether it's a 30-second walk, a 5-minute walk, or a 20-minute walk, to really just settle into that moment and bring those thoughts down. And it takes practice. So having grace, and I know, Leah, we've talked about this, is being gentle with yourself and having grace that you're learning new techniques. So it's really about learning how to really pay attention to the way your muscles are working when you're walking, how your body keeps your balance, how the breeze kind of comes at you when you're walking. So really being in those moments with all your senses, and taking that time to just pull everything down, all your emotions, your thoughts, so that when you get to that next moment, you actually can be much more effective rather than still being up here.
Totally.
And I don't know if I answered your question, but
I think that's great, because like you said, we are going to go a little bit more into mindfulness and what that looks like. But one more thing, if I could acknowledge from what you were just talking about, and because we talked about little steps, that piece of giving grace is so important in the realm of mental health. And I see a lot of people that, they want to get with a therapist so they can fix that one problem in their life quickly so they can get back to life. And, all of the mental ideas or thoughts or patterns that you're going to that person for, that you're watching this video for, those took years to develop. And it might take a little while to get that pattern back. It's the same as going to a gym and you're like, well, if I do push-ups today, I'm going to be ripped tomorrow. Like it's not realistic. People see that. And the same for mental health, that you're giving yourself that grace to say, yeah, you know what? My first day doing self-care and thinking about this might not be instant. And I might forget to mindfully walk lots of times a day, but maybe I'll remember once, and maybe tomorrow I'll remember twice, and just really encouraging people to take that with them.
I can't agree with you more. When you started that conversation, I was like, yes, this is so important, that everybody you do understand that you have not, you've not thought in these ways or acted in these ways before. And so that takes time to start putting that into place and being gentle. And even when you've done it for days, you've done whatever the healthy, the mindful walking is, there may be a day where it's, really, really busy and there's lots on your mind, and you've gone through the day and, I knew I couldn't keep this up, and it's really about giving yourself grace in that moment and giving yourself credit for all the times that you did walk mindfully in between things, and allowing yourself that grace that this is something that you've got to keep practicing. Mindfulness is a practice. It's not it's not perfect. So really being gentle on yourself and giving yourself credit for when you do choose to do those things, and being gentle on yourself and saying, okay, next time I'm aware that that's what I did. So next time I can, walk mindfully or pay more attention to that.
Well, and hopefully for people, that's also a little bit relaxing, like you were already talking about, this idea of, I already have so much in my day. It's not necessarily about making more time, it's just using your time differently, right? You're as good as it is for you, and it might feel like the only way you can become mindful to meditate for 10 minutes a day or whatever people suggest. It can also feel overwhelming to have that extra 10 minutes. But you're saying, take that time that already exists. You're already walking, you're already eating, you're already experiencing the day. So what are some other places, I guess, like what are some good places that people could start exploring this with? Or do you have any activities that if they're going, I find this really hard, what could I do?
Well, I think the first thing, I definitely want to recognize that piece of, I encourage people when they're ready to take those, 15, half an hour, whatever you can set aside to just be quiet and silent. Just sometimes at the start, that's really hard to just feel like that's just another added thing. So start with adding these things a little bit at a time to what you're already doing. So there's a few things. If I have coffee drinkers out there, you'll resonate with this. Getting your coffee ready in the morning. And I'm not a coffee drinker, so I might leave some of this out. I'm a tea drinker. So if you think about watching the water go into the pot as you put the water in, and then listening to it, pouring it into the coffee maker. As you open up your coffee grinds, the smell of the coffee grinds, and putting them into the coffee maker, watching them fill up the filter, and then turning the coffee on, and you hear that, and then you start to hear the drip, and you see the coffee fill in the carafe and start to change color. And then you take your cup out of the cupboard, and then as you pour your coffee and you see it swirl around in the cup and fill it up, and your cup is warm, you bring it to your mouth and you feel the warmth on your lips. And then it tastes differently if you taste it at the front of your mouth versus the back of your mouth. So really sinking into that moment. And really that's 5 minutes or 10 minutes out of your day. And what better way to start off your day than just, enjoying that one thing. If you're a real coffee, I know most coffee drinkers really love their coffee. So enjoy those moments. Enjoy that moment with your coffee and start off your day just having that where your thoughts aren't running. Now, here's the thing. When you first start it, your thoughts are going to go, oh, but you've got 50 other things that you need to do today. What are you doing taking this time? And so it's really about teaching your brain, because your brain is there. It thinks 24 hours a day. That's what it's there for. So we're training our brain to think in a different way. We're training it to, when I want to be mindful and slow down, I want you to come with me. So it's going to go automatically, all those warnings, you've got 50 things to do in a day. And instead of saying, I don't want to think about that, because that puts focus on that, Acknowledge that thought. Yeah, I know I've got 50 things to do today. Right now, I want to focus on this moment here. And almost like a conveyor belt, let that thought go through and drop off. And then it'll go, yeah, but I've got 50. Okay, yeah, I know. Thank you for warning me about that. And again, I choose to focus on my coffee right now. So that takes time. It takes practice to do that. And eventually your brain's going to know when that coffee maker goes on, all right, this is the time that I slow down and focus on the coffee.
And what I really, if I can add, what I really like about that, and this might be easier, like you said, for people than meditation right off the bat, is you have so much stimulus to put you in the moment. And one of the things I found with my own mindfulness is when you're in the moment, it's harder to think, for me at least, about stress. Like stress is all about future, or if I'm feeling, really pain and loss or something about the past. Whereas, when I've got this, I'm a tea drinker as well, not a coffee drinker. But when I'm here, I'm feeling this, it's present, right? It takes away a little bit of that future or past tense that really holds us in a different way.
Right. And it gets those stressful feelings going, right? When you're thinking about the future or the past, the ruminating, which is often that more towards that low mood, and the worries about the future is often more towards that anxiety and overwhelm. And so just really focusing on your senses with that cup of tea or cup of coffee can just help you to just ground yourself into this moment and not be either place, but here. Because this is really, truly the only moment we can be in is now. So, yes. So you asked me for a few examples. That's one example. But I think even like a shower, taking a shower or a bath, like a shower, what a better way to be able to use all your senses, but in the shower. But how many times do we jump in the shower and start thinking about all the things we need to do in the day? Using those few moments to really feel the water, smell the soaps or the shampoos that you're using, feeling the soap in your hands, or I wouldn't suggest you want to taste the soap, but you know what I mean? Like all those, just really sinking into using all your senses to take those few moments just to ground yourself before you go on with your day is again. And really it's starting with a minute, 30 seconds at a time. If that's all you can tolerate, that's a good place to start, and then build from there. If 5 minutes feels like too much, don't start there. Start with 30 seconds and then build from there.
Well, and I think this transitions really nicely into something else I'm hoping you're going to talk about here. This idea of being in the moment, taking things slowly, not stressing about things. How does that play with the idea of multitasking?
Oh, yes. So how many of you or us have heard multitasking is the way to do things? Yeah, no, it actually does not work. There's tons of studies out there that are really looking into this. And there's honestly only 2% of the population that can actually multitask. And there's lots of studies that are talking about more errors, less. You actually are not as productive when you're multitasking. Even though you feel like you're doing all these things at once and getting more done, you're actually getting less done. So, and in fact, we're not actually multitasking. They call it switch tasking. So, so it really keeps you from being effective in life when you're multitasking. And so I put out the challenge of, you've got a list of 10 things to do at work. Start with task 1 and focus on that task. Don't think about task 5 and 8 while you're focusing on task 1, because you'll get it done more effectively. But it's the same thing when you're with your kids. Okay, so there's a couple of things that I'll speak directly to those people with kids. So when you're at work and you're worrying about your kids, and then you're spending the time trying to navigate between work and worrying about kids or answering texts or whatever, you're not very effective. at work when you're doing all that. And I get it. Sometimes there's crises, sometimes there's emergencies that you have to take care of, but lots of times it isn't. It isn't a crisis or emergency. And then you go home to spend the time with your kids and you feel guilty for not getting all your work done because you were distracted by your kids. So when you're home with your kids, you actually are distracted and not being mindful and in the moment with them. So in both places, you're not being effective or, connecting with whatever you need to connect with. You're not being effective and efficient at work when you're divided, and you're not actually being connected with your family when you're thinking about work and guilty feelings about work when you're with them. So it's really, again, challenging to start changing those ways we look at things and start changing our focus in the moment. And I'm going to say it's really, really important.
So when I'm thinking about this, of course, it's great to say. And if you were in a sterile room with your computer and you only had your list of work tasks, that would be great. So how do you recommend then if you get that text from your kid in the middle of the day, or your boss comes in and says, hey, I know you're doing task A, but now we're going to do task B. Is there a specific thing that you think helps people make that switch gracefully or helps them out through that time so it doesn't become maybe either all consuming or, out and back? Or I'd love to hear a little bit more.
So the first of all, and you're going to hear this a lot from me, is giving yourself grace, that you cannot efficiently switch between tasks. Your brain actually takes time to have to switch to something else. So if it's something that you have to take care of, giving yourself those moments to allow your brain to switch. So if your boss comes in and says, yeah, I know you've been in, you're like rocking on whatever you're supposed to be doing, and it's like, what? Allow yourself a few moments, and to even be able to say, you know what, I can do that. Just give me a few moments to allow my brain to come off of this thing and then be prepared for the next thing. And that's a really important thing, is not to expect yourself or your brain to just be able to be on it like that. And the same thing, a text comes in from your child, it's the same thing. You can look at it and decide if it's something that needs to be responded to right away. Or I know with my kids, if it was something that was really, really important, I would get more than one text.
Totally.
So, being okay with saying, all right, I'm going to work on this for 5 more minutes before I check that, or putting your phone away. And making sure that they have your work number if you're at work. I understand lots of people are working at home now, so the cell phone is the way to do it. But having a way to communicate that this is actually an emergency, and that you need to leave what you're doing, rather than this just being something that's a check-in. Because I love it that my kids check in with me throughout the day. I just can't always switch to that while I'm in a task.
We can't ask a teenager to call you. That would just be silly.
I'm telling you, they will though if it's an emergency.
There you go. Well, it's such a good point too, though, because I've also read studies that even that quick like, oh yeah, what's this? Even if you're not reading, even if you're not responding to, that shift away, of course, is going to make you less efficient. It's going to take those couple minutes. And you're saying though, if you don't take those couple minutes to reground, reset, you're just going to be still on that thing. Like, it's almost like you need that minute to detach, reattach, and then you can be fully effective again.
Exactly, because it'll take you longer to actually get into that next thing you're working on if you don't take those moments to reground, because your head is still in 2 different places.
Yep.
So you're in 2 different places. You're starting it right away, but you're in 2 different places. So it takes you longer to get into that new task. Whereas if you just take those moment or 2 to just breathe, pull yourself out of what you were doing, and then once you've grounded yourself, go into the next thing. Then you're not taking that time to try and let go of the other thing and get into the new thing.
I hate to say, but we are definitely coming up on our time.
Wow.
I know it flies sometimes. It flies. So I understand that you have a gift that you can offer people if they want to start a little bit of this journey with you for free. Please tell us about it.
Absolutely. So I am offering to anyone who's sees this training or listens to it a free 20-minute Akashic record coaching call with me, and the link will be here for you to do that. And I would love to spend 20 minutes with you. The Akashic records are really a book of sort of your soul's journey and can really give us some insights on some of those steps that are important for you to move forward. And then using both that and my therapy skills, we can just talk about some steps that are important right now for you if you're feeling overwhelmed or stuck or just not really sure what's next.
Yeah. So a starter.
Yes.
Starter to your journey.
Exactly.
Well, that's fantastic. Like Lesley said, we're going to make sure that and her website gets into the comment box. So if you want to reach out, please do. You definitely want to capitalize on this opportunity. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here today, Lesley. This was just fantastic.
Thank you. It was my honor to be here with all of you.
Excellent. And just like we said at the beginning, it is Mental Health Awareness Week. If you do need support, if someone in your life you think might need support, don't try to hide it. Don't be ashamed. As much as you can, put that time in and care for yourself, and know that there's a whole bunch of people supporting you. So
absolutely, reach out.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.